Hallelujah, hallelujah. Welcome once again. Shabbat, early Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Welcome once again to another Shabbat night talk. My name is Uziel Lewy. Well, not really another Shabbat night talk. This is really we going through the previous week's Sidra with Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah, who will be highlighting some points from the previous week's Sidra,
Shemot.
as he does on a weekly basis. We thank the Creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We're grateful to the mighty King for all things and everything, what he does for us, even in these, the lands of our captivity. And I'm grateful that the Creator of heaven and earth has us here once again for another week, and not taking granted that the Most High God is the one who keeps us all alive. So how are you, Nasik? How was your week?
It's great. A busy week. Yeah, just leaving from up there your way and getting back
Right.
down this way. But I'm thankful I got back safe and enjoyed my little time
Hallelujah.
up there. Yeah.
So you could take it over whenever you're ready.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Eternal Universe God, my forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and due respect to the leadership of D.C.B, Chief Prince Ariel, and also to the hostess hosting the city, Chief Uziel, and to the brothers, Prince Chief, brothers and sisters, Maureen, the rabbis that's out there, Connie, preach all, and talking about forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and all new comers to this talk. I try to highlight some information into the previous sidra that was spoken on in most synagogues that follow a certain cycle of reading. Um, this last week was the book of Shemot, which is going into the book of Exodus for those new people that might be coming in. And previously, I had finished the book of Barry Sheet, which is last sidra was in Hebrew they call Rayiki, and he lived, talking about Yaakov. And we know that it was about he blessed his children, but some people, when you look at the 49th chapter of Genesis, they don't think that it was a blessing. But some of them, such as Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, but or Levi, as I would say, um, but to know your weaknesses, know where you're weak at, know your faults. That's a blessing, because now if you know where the problem lies within the individual, that's a blessing. That's why it says at the end, and he blessed all his sons. We also read about his funeral and how the great mourning that the people had for him and the process that was done and his travel back and forth. Read about Joseph himself, um, promising to take care of the rest of his brothers and, so to speak, and let bygones be bygones. And normally it's the tradition, those that follow and use the Sidra, which I neglected to do last time, was when you finish a particular portion of like Genesis or finish the book of Exodus, you have this saying called Kazak Kazak Nikuzate, which means be strong, and let us make one another strong. That means that we all share information and we all learn from one another. So right now we're getting into the book of Exodus, um, but the particular portion we call it is Shemot, which means names, and um, and names. It's very interesting that it's opened up with names, and we're going to be discussing about a name later on within the portion. And it seems like it's just we was told about the names of the sons of Yaakov in Genesis when he's getting ready to go down, in Egypt, and he was blessing them. But also, um, we begin this particular book of Exodus, which really gives a turn for a departure out of Egypt, which we don't depart just yet, but it's in the process. So I would take it from, and it starts from actually Exodus the first chapter, first verse, going to the sixth chapter in the first verse. But I'm just going to highlight some of the things that it entails, because I won't be able to speak on everything, and I'm just like I said, review and highlight certain points in passing on a Friday night, which is, and also this is Rosh Chodesh right now, this when I'm speaking, but so it'd be an early Shabbat to those um, that might look at the recording later. So I'm just going
Hallelujah.
to explain some things within this particular portion. It says a
Exodus
new
chapter
Pharaoh.
1, verse 1.
Yeah, yeah, we're not reading that yet. I'm just going to over outline. Just
Okay,
give a
no
little
problem.
outline.
No
All
problem.
right. A new Pharaoh comes to power, who orders all the Israelites, male children, to be drowned. All right. Baby Moses put in a basket and set afloat on the Nile River. All right. Moses is saved by Pharaoh's daughter. Moses kills an Egyptian who is beating an Israelite and flees for his life to the land of Midian. Um, the Creator God speaks to Moses out of the burning bush and tells him that he and his brother Aaron will liberate the Israelites from Egyptian slavery. And then we have Pharaoh, you know, imposes hard labor upon the Israelites. All right, so now we know about the names, and sometimes you always say, well, why we go over the names again of the tribes? I just want to highlight that within the first chapter of Exodus, they actually go over the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. But what is interesting is that they sandwiched the handmaid's children between Benjamin and Joseph. And while everybody else is in order, all of the Leah's children in order, and then the handmaid's children is, between Benjamin and Joseph. And they always say, well, why is that? Why that particular order? Which is a little different from that, what you read, and in their birth, and that is to show that the handmaid children are not to be subservient to the sons of Leah and the sons of Raquel. And
Okay.
being Raquel was his beloved wife, he used those two sons who he tended to favor more than the other sons, which was Joseph and Benjamin. So therefore, you read the tribe of Dan, Naphtali, Gad and Asher, in between those two names to show that they have equal standing in the nation of Israel. They're not like a minor tribe. And we notice also later on that Dan happened to be a standard bearer of a tribe of, up north. So then we goes on to talk about, and we're going to pick it up from, we find out that Joseph dies and all his brothers of that generation. Traditionally, they say Joseph was the first one to die out of all the 12 original sons of Yaakov, and he died at 110. Now, we know automatically that Lewi, we're given Lewi's birth age when he died, which is 137. And, Levi, I got to remember, for people might not realize what I'm talking about. For Levi, the third son of Yaakov, we know that he died at 137. So, if Joseph died at 110, the most he could have been older than Joseph is maybe 5 years. That's the most. 5 years older. So, and that's pushing it there. He's saying each year from Reuben down. So we're saying that Joseph pretty much was uh, because Yaakov had all them sons within a 7 year period. Except for Benjamin, he was the only one who wasn't born within a 7 year period. So that means some sons was pretty much having birth dates in the same year. So that would put Levi or Lewi at the age of approximately 115 when Joseph died. So we know that he outlived Joseph and he was older than Joseph. So now, and it says all that generation. So now we pick up in the 8th verse in that first chapter. We're going to pick it up just from there, Chief.
We're in the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 8. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there befalleth us any war, they also join themselves unto our enemies, and fight against us, and get them up out of the land.
Hold right there. Now, we're going to stop right there. I just want to bring out a point. It's always a controversy. Is it a new king completely, or a king that has a new policy? Because it never, it's always a debate on both sides amongst rabbinic scholars which one it was. Because normally, and the policies would seem more appropriate, because no one takes over an empire without understanding the empire they took over. So it would be normally a blatant disregard, for Joseph and that family, but he recognized that there's a different people there. And this Pharaoh is actually, within this particular portion, you find out that Pharaoh is the first in the history of Israel. They recognize Israel as a nation. Everybody else, we call the children of Israel, but they use the word B'nai Yisrael, which is a nation. So it's the first time Israel themselves are recognized as a nation, and it's from this particular Pharaoh, who, we speculate whose name it is. All right, and since the book don't give up the name of the Pharaoh, I'll just leave it like that, and leave it for the people that would like to research it. But as we go further, our only crime, not that he, what was that we multiply. Say we're too many and too mighty. So if we're too many and too mighty, how can you deal with somebody too many and too mighty? So let's deal with them wisely, deal with them cunning. You say, well, if you fear us and we're stronger than you and we're more powerful than you, almost sound like the black man in America, so to speak. Then how we still can control you? How can we still manipulate you? So it should, make you wonder that this is propaganda talk, pretty much. He bring it up because he's talking to his people. So now propaganda is being exercised right here in this particular time. And there's another thing that we see. Now we see propaganda being used now for a national policy, and he use it as to say, as a threat of war. They have no cause to fight for our cause, because this is not their land. They might decide to allow the enemy to come in and say, look here, this ain't my house. Go ahead, do what you're going to do.
Right.
And therefore, I invite them in. But we know historically it was they were called Shepherd Kings Hyksos, which I don't want to speak on at length about the Hyksos Shepherd Kings. That's what they called them, which was Shemitic people that invaded the land of Egypt. And they will say that this is the actual Egyptian at this time, whereas Joseph's time, it was actually one of them Shepherd Kings that adopted Egyptian culture and then took over and conquered them. So that's always a line of discussion, but I'm not going to go into it in this particular point, because I figured that the regular teachers would do that, and it takes a lot more time. Also now, one of the things is that they automatically say the policies is that they will not even help us. They would join to the other guy's side, sympathize with the other guy's side. So so this is a natural policy that this king, this new Pharaoh, new king, bringing up. And it says 11th verse.
Verse 11 reads, Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithon and Ramesses. But the more they have...
All right, just stop there. I just want to bring out, the, a lot of people, it used to have this myth that Israelites built the pyramids and worked on the pyramids. It tell you what right here in the scriptures. If we take scriptures, what we actually did, you know, uh, and as the story progressed later on, you see that we wasn't too much serious laborers. We was more technicians, specialists. That the field work, the grunt work was done mostly by Egyptians. So we had a certain status that was starting to change somewhat. And then it goes on to say, but the more they afflicted them,
the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad, and they were a dread because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
Keep going.
And they made their lives better with hard service, and mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field, and in all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor.
All right. That's important to know that we wasn't used to that kind of work. We didn't have that kind of work, but yet when we stayed there a little long, we started to mingle and started to adopt a lot of their culture, started to be more patriotic to the cause. So therefore, some historians and other scholars say, well, we're doing civil service work. So this is the first real civil service work that you read about that a nation imposed upon another nation. But they was not getting paid for it. So slavery, slave labor. So the 15th verse, I just want to touch on a little bit about that.
Verse 15, and the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the service of a midwife to the Hebrew women, ye shall look upon the birth stool. If it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
17th verse going.
But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the man children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwife come unto them. And God,
all right, now, I just want to stop there just for a moment. This is the first time in history, that women, or anybody for that matter, decide to go against a national policy. And they say that civil law is subservient to godly law. That's the difference. That they actually went against the government policy, with such as Pharaoh. The government policy was to kill all male children. That was a government policy. And they was held accountable. But their answer was that these women, they feared God more than Pharaoh. But the answer is, they're like animals. They're lively. They use the word, but the word is like animals. So before, animals have litters real quick, have babies real quick, offsprings real quick, and said they don't need their services. But we read later on that because they fear God, God built them houses. That's another story to speak on. And I know rabbinic literature identify who the women's were. But first of all, it ain't just be two women to deal with thousands of people that could be having babies at one time. So what you're actually focusing on is women that's in charge of a group of women or a certain guild that are midwives. So it's under their authority, because how could a midwife be around 100 women having child at one time when we left out of Egypt with 600,000 plus men of war? So that job is ain't just for two women. They deal with a whole nation of looking for males. Now, also, what we also find from this is that this policy had to come later because we know Aaron, as we're going to read about later on or speak on later on, was 3 years older than Moshe. And he was never under that death threat of this national policy of killing the males.
Mm-hmm.
So it's around after Aaron was born, after that, somewhere along there, that policy came into effect where the women had to get rid of the male children. So that gives you an idea how Aaron was never in a danger zone, where Moshe and people like that within that generation, within that time period, was on a danger zone. Plus, the way the children of Israel was located, for the most part, most of them didn't live near the Nile. So now, when you read about, as we get into the story about Moshe and his people, we know that these were more affluent because they lived closer to the Nile area, to the metropolis area, in order for this to take effect. But for the most people that lived in Goshen, that's a good ways from the Nile, so they couldn't hardly monitor that regular. But then we know also some people adhere to it. So now, this is the first time you read about abortion in our history. So when we talk about abortion laws, this is an abortion thing right here, but it's abortion against a particular sect. So prior to that, we don't have anything about abortion. You're either going to wipe a people out, you're not going to wipe a people out. But when you have selective birthing, then you're talking about abortion. All right, so this was the family planning they was talking about in the early stages. Yeah. So as we go further there, Pharaoh made it a national policy for everybody to, get involved in that. And get involved in that.
Right.
In that.
Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
Okay. So that sounds like somewhat slavery here. Get rid of the men, beat the men down, whatever the case is, but take the women. But one thing I like to speak on is another interpretation of the dream of Pharaoh ben Yosef. I'd like to use this time to speak on this. When they talk about the 7, cows, hippos, whatever, coming out the river, and the 7 lean eating the healthy, and also the next, the grain of wheat, healthy and stuff like that, and then you have the blasted wheat, looking all scrawny and stuff like that, eating up the other wheat. That's some interpretations that some commentators said that Pharaoh got, that this Pharaoh might thought about, was that a weak people mightier than the people, and beating up a people, overcoming a people that's mightier than them. We didn't fight against the Egyptians. The Egyptians were dealing with us right, but they call us mighty. But sometimes we don't know our own potential. So we was actually weak to be subjected like that and subjugated like that. So now the alarm is that no dictator want a weak people to rise up and be more powerful and overthrow him. So that would be another interpretation that could have been forced from the dream, that the weak overcoming the strong.
Right.
Almost remind you of the Maccabee. The many in the hands of a few. The weak that's strong into the hands of the weak. So that's another interpretation of that Pharaoh's dream that Joseph had interpreted for Pharaoh, but it was more in light of saving Egypt and not destroying. But you can interpret something from a different perspective all the time, such as a lot of people do in Torah. So we're gonna go on and just read the second chapter. Just going to the second chapter.
We're in the book of Exodus, chapter 2, starting from verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took a wife of the daughter of Levi, And the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
Okay.
And when he...
Now we'll just stop right there.
All right.
All right. For a moment, that identify that she's from the tribe of Levi. All right, Levi tribe of Levi. For those that may not be familiar, because I had some people tell me about what's Levi, what's Yaakov, stuff like that. They had to figure it out. So that wife is a daughter of Levi. That's the one we know. We're gonna find out later on. Her name is Jochebed. And we're gonna that's Moses and Aaron and Miriam's mother. And she had the father will be named Aharon. Amram would be the father. So they give you some lineage of them. All right. And they talk about she have a child. All right. And there was a goodly child. Now goodly, it's a lot of commentaries about what is goodly. So the way I share this information about what is goodly and my interpretation on it, is that he wasn't a whining baby. Now, now some people, I know some of the midrashim would say when he was born, it was a great light in the room, and it was like 6 months instead of being 9 months. She carried him only for 6 months, and therefore it was a great light in the room. That's a midrash and rabbinic, viewpoint. I'm just sharing the way we taught it in BINAH Zakim, and when I came up, that he was a goodly child in the sense that he didn't cry and whine as much, so he wouldn't betray the family of having that male child. So that's why she was able to hide him so long, because he's not, if a baby whining, and say, oh, what's wrong with that baby? Is that a boy child or a female child? So it had to be, and so that's the interpretation we use coming up from my teachings coming up, was that it was a goodly child, that he didn't whine as much. He wasn't cry baby or real heavy. And that's strange for a baby not to cry so much and not to betray his presence. But after 3 months, she said she couldn't hide him anymore, because people, it ain't like you walk around invisible and being pregnant. So
Right.
so that's when she did follow a policy. All right. So let's go on to this part, because this is interesting.
Verse 3, and when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch. And she put the child therein and laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside, and she saw the ark among the flags, and sent her handmaid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw it, and even the child. And behold, a boy that wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children.
Hold right here. All right, we stop before we get to the 7th verse. All right. The child wept. The mother, you would say, well, the mother was that afraid of being caught with this child that I'm going to still put him in the Nile. I'm going to still adhere to the policy of Pharaoh. Whereas the midwives would not adhere to the policy of Pharaoh. And, so you could think about that and imagine that. Or, she recognized this is a special child. Now, I'm familiar with a lot of, commentaries on it, and I just like to bring out different viewpoints on it other than the normal commentaries what people would normally read on themselves. And then when we look at it further, that she put him in an ark. Now, the word tabak is the only time you read that word used is with Noah, a tabak. And Noah's ark was to preserve life. That tabak was to preserve life. And so a lot of times when we look at the English, we'll think about the ark, like the Ark of the Covenant. And that's called out of Rome like a closet or a chest. But the word here is used as tabak. And that's used only to save and preserve life, like Noah's time and like this time. And that's the only one. And it's meant to just stay afloat, not necessarily to sail. Noah's ship didn't have no rudders, no sails, it just stay afloat and land where it's supposed to land. His was to stay afloat and land where it's supposed to land. And and so she recognized, you know, and they say, well, how you recognize a Hebrew child? Two things. One, Egyptians wasn't throwing their babies in the Nile. And if we think about that, also throwing the child and children in the Nile, feeding the Nile, the Egyptians actually worshiped the Nile, and they worshiped the creatures in the Nile. So it's almost like a sacrifice to their deity.
Right.
When you're bringing the children into the Nile, from that perspective, because they worship the hippo, they worship the crop, and they worship the Nile. So if you're throwing your child in there, it's almost like an offering or a sacrifice to that. But that's another story to consider in our perspective. And she know that Egyptians wasn't doing that kind of stuff. And then now also, as a baby, you can see the circumcision.
Right.
The sign of the covenant. So, and it said the child, Moses wept when he seen her. All right, but go ahead.
Verse 7, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, because I drew him out of the water. And
we don't know who Moses' name was before that. We don't have a clue.
Great
we don't
point.
know we don't know where mama called him. Say, boy. Like someone say, boy, come over here.
Right.
And we have a name. So we don't know. I mean, I know they have a lot of rabbinical stories about all these different names that Moshe could have had and stuff like that. But I'm saying, from the Tanakh, from the text itself, we don't know what the mother called them.
Absolutely.
We know the name that Pharaoh's daughter called. And plus, you know, I know rabbinic literature, they expound upon her name. But, you know, I try to keep it in pretty much in what we find right here, since it's a wide spectrum of audience here that we might be listening. But what is really interesting, you know, they have say why she couldn't get an Egyptian to nurse him. You know, why she had to, you know, I mean, it could seem like you are Pharaoh's daughter. I'm sure Egyptians having babies, they have some nurses. You know, they have, I'll share this one, Midrash thing. They say that he refused to drink from any of them, so you need to find a Hebrew. He wouldn't drink from strange milk because they idol worshipers. So you want to drink from an idol worshiper's breast. But his mother wasn't an idol worshiper. So you drink from his mother's breast. But in any event, you know, his mother had to be a good character, and plus he had to be a good child himself, that she took care for her child, and she wound up getting it back and nursing and getting paid to do that. And Miriam himself, and most children are glad to get rid of other children. But Miriam stood by to see what was going to happen and was able to save him. So now, one, when we talk about the Exodus, the midwives was an act of salvation for the people of Israel. Then Moshe, you know, mother took care to try to save him as much as she can.
Right.
Now you had Pharaoh's daughter fell in love with Moshe as a child and took care. And then you had Miriam, who stood along the side to wait on him, to see what's happening, was concerned about him, and was the bridge between bringing in, his Moshe, getting fed by his mother. So now, all this, we don't find no men taking a leading role in the story of Shemot. All we seen was the names of men in the beginning of Shemot, but we see all the major role playing with these women taking the lead, going against national policy, saving the children the best they can. Moshe being cared for, but and she's going against her father's policy. Now, what is more profound is that you figure if your daughter have a child, wouldn't you be concerned about who's the father?
Absolutely.
But when we look at Leviticus, I think the 18th, 19th chapter, talk about those illicit relationships, and it says that we shouldn't do after the doings of the land of Egypt where we come from, or the land where we get ready to go.
Right.
They had a lot of promiscuity, so they had a lot of illicit relationships. They had a lot of adulterous affairs. So therefore, Pharaoh, was nobody would question his daughter about having a child.
Right.
And that's, and he's raised up in the court and raised up as a prince. So that shows you the promiscuity that was going on. We know how Joseph was accosted by his master's wife, try to come after him.
Right.
So there's a lot of promiscuity that was going on in Egypt, and a lot of infidelity, and different kind of fornication was going on in that place. That's why when we read Leviticus, it tell you about all the stuff they did, and it talk about all the stuff that the people that we going to dispossess did in relationships.
Right.
So that's why we could say, well, bro, this business as usual, because you would be concerned, and you had to see the child, that he's a Hebrew child. But we're going to just speak on just a little bit on after he's grown up. And this I'm going to share something my grandson shared in this particular portion, so you can read it.
Verse 11, and it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown up, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on his burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Hold it right there. Now, I'm going to just go over it again. It came to pass in those days when Moses was growing up, that he went out unto his brethren, and he looked on their burdens. Now, when you look at the Hebrew a little bit more, and I was, when I was in New York, we were discussing this particular Sidra with my grandson. So my younger grandson, 11-year-old, he came with this part. So I said, I'm gonna give him a shout out, kind. So that it said one of the things she learned was that Moses, why would he need to know and see their burdens? He know what kind of work they're doing. He's a prince. He know exactly what they're doing. But what he did was, and the Hebrew word is that he's seen in their burdens. So he had empathy. He's seen the pain they're going through. Like if he was doing the actual work, that's what he saw. When he recognized his brothers, how, he know he's moving this, but you could feel the strength and the agony in the individual soul. And that's what Moses had seen when he went out to see the burdens on his brethren, because he know what kind of work it was. So it was not, he knew where to find them. He know what kind of work that was, but how intense it was on that individual. Moses felt that empathy for a people, that kind of empathy. So therefore, he goes on to say, what else? Pick it up.
Oh, all right. Here we go. Give me 1 second here. It reads 13. And he went out the second day, and behold, 2 men of the Hebrews were striving together.
Hold on. We read about the Egyptian. Let's skip that. All right. Oh yeah. And he saw an Egyptian smite. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, right. Yeah. And he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren, and he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man,
he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna share. Also, my grandson brought out, is that when he looked this way and that way, and when you look at it in the Hebrew, it's more intense. He looked to see if there was anything worth saving in that individual Egyptian. Is there any good in him? It's almost like the yin and the yang. The Egyptians beating this Hebrew so bad that do I have to go to extremes to really kill him? Or, could I just, get him off the brother? But we know one thing. He felt the agony of the Hebrew. And when he felt the agony of the Hebrew, and felt the agony of his brethren, that he actually couldn't take it anymore. And then seeing any good in the individual. So he wound up slaying that Egyptian and hitting him in the sand. So the plain Peshat way, I know what they say, he looked this way and that way, could it be a capital crime to kill an Egyptian to save a Hebrew, when Hebrew was already on the death list, per se, for decimation. So that's the Peshat, that's the plain teaching, that he looked this way and that way to see if anybody was looking, so that he could slay this Egyptian and save this Hebrew. All right. And we're going just a little bit more.
Verse 13. And when he went out the second day, and behold, 2 men of the Hebrews were striving together, and he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Thinkest thou that thou to kill me as thou didst kill the Egyptian?
And all right, now I'm going to stop right there. And Moses says, surely this thing is known. All right, now, it's 3 things. A ruler, that means you my superior. A judge, that means you also judging and adjudicating the case. And now you want to be the executioner too? So you're a 3-in-1 guy. You want to be the ruler, you acting like you're the ruler. You acting like you're the judge. And you act like you're going to be the executioner. And that's what you did with the Egyptian. You act like you was all in one. And so Moshe looked this way and that way. And this is what I used to teach. I can't prove it. This is just a viewpoint that I brought out. And, for years, and pretty much what we taught in BINAH Zakin in those days is that he must have been the individual that other Egyptian was beaten down. Because that's the only one that would be able to see something. The guy he was saving. And you say, well, he deserved that beating. But Moshe, all he seen was a brother in danger. That's all he seen. And the Egyptian beating down a brother. Because he said, look this way and that way. So if he saved the brother from the Egyptian, then that must have been the guy that the Egyptian was beating. That's what we used to say. I can't prove it no more, but that's what we used to, teach, and coming up. And therefore, he deserved that whipping he got. Right. And so, and notice also we say when 2 Israelites are fighting, you say, well, both of them thank God on their side.
Right.
The Creator's with me over here. The Creator's with me over there. And there's 2 Israelites fighting. But he noticed that somebody was wrong. That's why he said he spoke to the one that did the wrong, not the one that was in the right. That means this time he held down, and listened to the case a little bit more. All right. So when he listened to the case, observed it a lot bit more, and he spoke, tried to talk. Then he had to get in flight, because surely this thing is known. So the first time he acted too quick, too rash. This time he tried to talk it out. The third time we know that when he goes to Midian, he rescued Jethro's daughters from the well, he goes on and just stand there when they're being harassed, and when he fled to Midian. So when he fled to Midian, they were just being harassed there. We know that the daughters were being harassed rather at the well. He didn't swing. He didn't say anything. He just stood by, and the guys left him alone. And then he drew water and gave it to the flock of Jethro, helping his daughters out. So that's maturity. Sometimes, Moses had to go through a growing stage. Sometimes he act too rash. The next time he act with a little bit more decorum. And then sometimes as he developed, he got to stand on the right side of the issues. And that's just enough alone. You don't have to say anything. Just be on the right side of issues and stand firm. And that's all he did that time, where there was no violence, no injury, and yet saving was done. Assistance and act of charity. Just being on the right side of issues and not being so rash. So we're going to move on just a little bit now into the fourth chapter.
Chapter 4?
No, 3. No. Let me see. Yeah, third chapter.
We go into the book of Exodus, chapter 3.
Yeah,
starting from verse 1.
Yeah.
And it reads, Now Moses was keeping the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the farthest end of the wilderness, and came to the mountain of God unto Horeb. The angel of the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight, while the bush is not burnt.
Now hold right there. All right, we stop there before going to the fourth verse. One of the things is that there's nothing strange to see bushes burning in the desert. It's hot out there. It's hot out there. So you're going to see bush fires all the time. When that sun get down there and the bush be so dry, and they're going to spark a fire. Just like you have forest fires in California all the time. So you're gonna have them bush fires out there in the desert. But what was unique is that this bush was burning and not consumed, and that's when he said to take a notice. That's the only difference. Not that there was just a bush fire on fire, but that it wasn't being burned up. So you had to stand there a while to notice that. All right, so now you can pick it up from there.
Verse 4, And when Yahweh saw that, he turned aside to see. God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground.
And that's something. All right. So that means the Creator designate a spot that's holy. All right. We can hollow something and dedicate it to the Creator. But we don't designate anything holy. It's the Creator to designate something that's holy. And His presence makes it holy. So when we look here, it said, told him take off his shoes off his feet because he's standing on holy ground. There's always a little subtle question. If you're already standing on there with the shoes, why you need to come out of it now? Because you're already there. Your shoes on your feet. But it teaches certain lessons that when you know you're not proper, then get proper. The Creator allow you that time to get proper because you didn't realize, you realize there's something going on strange here. And you notice he said the God of thy father, not the God of thy fathers. The same God, and Pharaoh wasn't his father. Pharaoh's daughter raised him up, it wasn't his mother. That means that Moshe knew something about God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That information was being transmitted straight down. That's why I said the God of your father and not their fathers. All right. So now this is the first time Moshe gonna actually have a revelation from the Creator. His first encounter. All right. Worth looking into.
Verse 6. Verse 6, moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
All right, now when he says that, he said, the same God, your father God, is the same God of Abraham, the same God of Isaac, the same God of Yaakov. But he said, I'm the God of your father, not fathers. And then he said, and the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and then the God of Jacob. All right, read a little bit here.
Verse 7, and Yehudah said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their pains, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, a lodge, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, and the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. And now behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them.
All right, right there. I'm going to stop at 10. All right. One of the things is that Moses hid his face first. Why would you hide your face? And, like God can't see it. But out of respect, even they had this concept that I'm not worthy. Usually when you hide your face, it's like saying I'm not worthy. Most people try to peer through to see God and be unworthy. As we read later on, down in chapters later, they say, look, put a barrier over there. Don't let nobody come break through at this revelation. Try to see what's going on.
Right.
All right. But Moshe hid his face immediately, like saying, I'm not worthy. That's a sign of humbleness. All right. And then, and it said, for he was afraid to look upon God. All right. And now the Creator said, I've seen an affliction. You remember them? But what's interesting here is that this the first time Canaan is called the land that flowing with milk and honey. That's the first time this is ever used here.
Right.
Abraham, it was never told of that in none of the patriarchs' time. Hence, you had famines and every one of their time. Abraham time, you had famine in that land. Yitzchak time, you had famine in the land. Yaakov time, they came in there, they left because of a famine in the land. Now, this is the first time you hear about a land flowing milk and honey. Make it attractive for the people that's down in Egypt all them years to come back. So now, and he said, he see the oppression. Now, at the cry to, children of Israel. Now, the children of Israel were crying and their oppression. You could cry out to God about somebody, but is your crying really valid? See, the Creator is letting them know that their cry is valid because I see what the Egyptians are actually doing to them.
Right.
It's like, and this is an important point because when he told Abraham, I will come down, because the cry of Sodom waxed up great, and I'm going down and to see, if it's all what they say it is. Not that the Creator need to come down any closer. So that's why it's to teach you now that I not only hear the people crying about the Egyptians, but I also see the Egyptians doing them wrong at this particular time and afflicting them. So that's why when we read things in Genesis, we got to see, well, this is a repeat. It's a similar situation as we move forward. All right. I'm trying to pick this up a little bit more.
Verse 10.
Yeah.
Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be the token unto thee, that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. And Moses said unto God, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers have sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you.
All right, stop right there. Sent me unto you. Okay. All right. Now, first of all, said the God of your father says, sent me unto you. And then Moses said, what name? What is name? And the Creator don't give him a name. He gives him a bunch of actions, verbs. And a pronoun. As part of a verb, verbal pronouns, I guess. A verbal noun. A verbal noun. So, Yea, Asher, Yea. I will be that which I be. That means that once you give anybody a name, you limit their character. That's what, and that's why he says, I will be that I will be. You cannot limit my character. And as we know later on, I'm just going a little bit ahead, that, he already mentioned the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he let you know that to each one of them, I appear to them differently. So I meant something different to each one in their life.
Right.
So the Creator will be something different in each one of our lives at any time in each generation. So what the Creator means to one generation and how they perceive the Creator, it will be different from the next generation. So when he say, I will be that I will be, which is a bad translation in English when it say, I am that I am, that's like I'm locked into the situation, like Popeye.
Right.
I am that I am, that's all I am. Where I will be that I will be, letting you know that you cannot confine me. You can't understand the limits of a name, because a name puts a limit on the individual. So now, why would Moses even ask about the name? One reason he could possibly ask for the name is this. And that's a possibility. I'm just, me talk. That how I know and how they know you the same God from back then. The same God of Abraham, the same God of Isaac, the same God of Jacob, and the same God of my father, that you took so long. I ain't the only one crying out. They crying out. How I know? How would they know? And how they know I'm talking to the same God? And what's important is that if you the same guy, the same God that was with them patriots, that was my father from way back, then I need to know that you're the same God, because the contract you made with Abraham, the contract you made with Isaac, the contract you made with Jacob will still be in effect. But if you're a different God, then our contract you made with Abraham, the contract you made with Isaac, the contract you made with Jacob may not be in effect.
Right.
So I need to know if you're the same individual God, not so much that I doubt that you're a God, because I show respect by, not wanting to look at you.
Right.
And I recognize that you are some kind of super being. But are you the same? And is that contract is still in effect? And if they've been crying to you, I haven't cried to you, they was crying to you, why you come to me and reveal yourself to me and not to them? You remember them. You didn't say you remember me. So I need to know, if they crying to you, how come you didn't answer them? But you're answering them through me. So it brings out a lot of different dynamics here. When we talk about, what is your name? Right. They're going to ask me about the name. Why I ask? Because we've been calling him for all these years and he didn't answer us. So all of a sudden now, you've been gone for a few years and you get this great revelation.
Right.
Read just a little bit more.
Verse 13. And Moses said unto God, oh, my bad.
All right.
Verse 15.
15.
And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yehudah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. God gather the elders of Israel together and say unto them, Yehudah, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, have appeared unto me, saying, I have surely remembered you and seen that which is done unto you in Egypt.
Right.
And I have
said,
and I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite.
Skip down to the 18th verse. Just go to 18th verse.
Verse 18. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt. Ye shall say unto him, Yehudah, the God of the Hebrews, have met with us, and now let us go, and we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yehudah our God.
All right, stop right there 1 second. What's important? I'm gonna stop at I'm gonna stop at the signs pretty much, and focus on one little thing. One of the things is that when he said go to the elders, all right, that means that we had a structure already in the land, and but what's interesting is that the Lord God of the Hebrews. Why didn't say the Lord God of the nation of Israel? But he said Lord God of the Hebrews. Because the Hebrews that's afflicted. It's the Hebrews that's, even though the Pharaoh recognized us as a nation of Israel, the Creator said, you can't subjugate Israel. You can subjugate them Hebrews, but you ain't gonna subjugate not the one that win, strive with God and man and prevail. That's not them at this stage now. You subjugating the ones that cross over, the Hebrews, that's what it is. And the Creator identified himself with the lowly, not the greatest. And said, look, you may think of them as nothing, but to me, there's something. And so therefore, you're talking about the Lord God of the Hebrews. And then the 19th verse, it says, and I know that the
king of Egypt will not give you leave to go except by a mighty hand. And I'll put forth my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that, he will let you go.
All right, we'll skip on down to the 4th chapter. All right, one of the things I want to bring out is that the Creator telling them, I'm sending you on a mission that's doomed to fail the first time you encounter Pharaoh. After you see after you see the elders and meet with them, I know Pharaoh ain't gonna let you go. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail, but I'm still sending you anyway. And you say, well, why send me if I know you're gonna fail? Why send me on a job that ain't gonna be successful? But the Creator telling them right quick, up front, that you ain't gonna be successful the first time around. So sometimes we figure because we're doing a service for the Creator that we're supposed to be already successful the first shot around, instead of with some setbacks. And we got a good example that the Creator talked to him directly, sent him on a mission, and said, you won't be successful your first shot around. All right, so the 4th chapter.
Chapter 4, verse 1. And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yehudah have not appeared unto thee. And Yehudah said unto him, what is that in thy hand? And he said, a rod.
All right, and let's stop right there. All right, it's a lot of mysteries about a rod. Yaakov crossed the Jordan with a rod. So it's always a thing about the rod. But and that's the same rod that he struck the rock, and the same rod that he spread out over his hand that opened up the Yam Su. Same rod that supposed to have budded. Something strange about this rod and when it's coming. It's a whole lot of legends behind that. But But what I want to focus on is not so much the rod right now. I want to focus on what is stated here, and what is stated is says, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice, for they will say, the Lord have not appeared unto me, unto thee. Now, the Creator already said they're gonna believe him. Already, when those, I know I'm going kind of fast and skipping over, but he said they would already believe him. Now Moses said they won't believe me, and now you got to say, well, all right, we know the Creator gives them these signs, 3 signs. The rod turned into a serpent. We know that not only the rod turned to the serpent, we know that his hand going to his bosom turned to leprosy. We know that also he takes some water and pour it out and it turns to blood. So you say, well, if the Creator said that they will believe you, and you say, but the people won't believe me, who's lying? The Creator is not a man that he should lie, nor the Son of Man that he should repent. So why give him these signs to prove that he met with the Creator? When the Creator said, just tell him who sent you. The password was, I remembered. That's what Joseph said, that the Creator will surely remember you and take account of you. And that's the same formula that he gave Moses right there. He said, I remember. So it haven't changed at that particular time. So sometimes we talk our own destiny into effect. Because the Creator gave them these signs. Said, okay, you saying they won't believe you. I'm gonna give you these 3 signs here. And he gave them 2 signs and the second sign. And he said, if you don't believe the second sign, they'll believe the third sign, the latter sign, water turned to blood. So that is always, a thing to think about. When the Creator send you on a mission, then, and you're talking about somebody else's belief system, it's your belief system that you should be questioning, not question somebody else's belief system. Right. Moses questioning the people's belief system instead of focusing on his belief system. He believed, we know he's humble because the Creator described his character. He's a man given to humility. But one of the things that if you got a skill, you don't play down your skill, you play down your arrogancy. That's the difference. So a lot of us, figure, if I got a skill to do certain things, then I'm gonna let it be known, I got this skill. I'm good at this area. But the arrogancy behind the skill is a difference. That's what you play down. But you never play down your skill and your net worth. And some brothers figure humble is that, I ain't gonna say nothing because I don't want people to think I know this. And that's playing down your skill. You hold your foolishness, but never your wisdom. So Moshe talked himself into a situation by saying what the people won't believe, but it was him. And we know this, just going ahead of the story 40 years down the road, that because you believe it not. So when he said that to rock 40 years later, he showed the lack of belief. The Creator said that they believe him. But anyway, he gave him these 3 signs anyway. So long story short, he goes there and meet him. But I just want to speak on one more little thing here about the support. We're going to skip down to the 18th verse.
Verse 18, chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4.
Yes.
And Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said unto him, let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren that are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. And Yehudah said unto Moses in Midian, go return into Egypt, for all the men are dead that sought thy life. And Moses took
I just want to stop there for a moment. You figure the Creator should told him that in the beginning as a selling point. Why he tell him that after Moshe get ready to go on this job? And he had seen his father-in-law. Seems like I know how you left here. I know you was a fugitive. I know people was looking for you, but only now the Creator say, all the men that are dead that sought your life. Seems like that'd have been the first thing to tell me if I had to flee from some place, and I know I was a wanted man. So it's to teach us something, another lesson, that you didn't really go that far. I kept you protected at the same time all these years. But you went to your father-in-law and said, you know what I mean, and asked leave. But let's go a little bit further.
Verse 20. And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt, and Moses took the rod of God in his hand.
Uh-huh.
And Yehudah
Wow,
said,
it got a name now. That rod got a name. The rod of God. First it was a regular stick, you know? Go ahead.
And Yehudah said unto Moses, when thou goest back into Egypt, see that thou do before Pharaoh all the wonders which I have put in thy hand. But I will harden his heart, and he will not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yehudah, Israel is my son, my firstborn. And I have said unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And thou hast refused to let him go.
That's just the answer, you know, the people when they say the Lord's only begotten son, you know, you find out right here that the Creator say who his son is, even his firstborn. And what he promised to do to Pharaoh first, he do last, as we know how the story goes. All right, let's finish. We're going to stop at the 26th verse. We're going to keep going.
Verse 22. And thou shalt say to Pharaoh, thus saith Yehudah, Israel is my son, my firstborn, and I have said unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And thou hast refused to let him go. Behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn. And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place that Yehudah met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet. And she said, surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me. So he let him alone. Then she said, a bridegroom of blood in the regard of the circumcision.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting thing here.
It is.
I had a discussion earlier in the week about this particular portion here. This is the most unclear section in the whole Exodus about Moshe's beginning his journey.
Right.
Because if we look at it very careful, all right, it said, starting from the 24th verse, it says, and it came to pass on the way at the lodging place of the hotel that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. One question, I'll stop right here. Since when the Creator go to kill somebody and fail? That's a question to think about. Nowhere in Scripture the Creator went out to kill somebody and not succeed. Now, another question to think about is who is the him? Who because it's not clear. Is it Moshe or somebody else? The kids. So who's the him? And then, so this is one of the, we have a lot of different viewpoints on this here, but this is one of those parts in scriptures that's not really, really clear, but yet it's a serious part of scripture and a serious part of his journey, And then when we go further, it says, then Zipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet. All right. And all right, now we're gonna stop right there just a moment. Which son? We know he had two. He had Gershon and Eliezer. It's not clear there. Most of us assume it's the younger son. All right. But we don't have that information given there. And then when you go further, it says, cast it at his feet. Who feet? The son feet that it was circumcised, or Moshe feet? Where the foreskin went? to Moses' feet or the kids' feet? We don't know. A lot of controversy go back and forth. I just wanted to stimulate conversation and thought as we move on, in that. So we don't have all the information given in those areas. And then it says, surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me. Who are you talking about? You talking about Moshe? Or you talking about, Katan Hadam, which is a bridegroom of blood that's mentioned in the scriptures here. It's and also could mean, a father-in-law or a son-in-law, and so that's one of the few terms in scriptures that is not even clearly defined and is used in the scriptures. You got other terms that's used, like Azazel. What Azazel is, who it is, what it is. We just ascribe certain things. It's a word that's used, but the meaning is not really clearly given. And shatnez, wool, we say that wool and linen mix. That's what we say. But that's a word that's used in scriptures that we never have a clear understanding of what that word means. So now we got this here, Katan Hadam, bridegroom of blood. What is that? What do they mean by that? How is he a bridegroom of blood? And she said, because of the circumcision. And so what that got to do with being a bridegroom of blood? Wasn't you married a while back? You got 2 children. You didn't get married just then. So what do all that mean? So I'm pretty much going to rest there, and then leave those things for people to ponder, and think about, because we don't have a lot of answers. There's a lot of different viewpoints and commentaries on it. But I like to leave those points so people, when we go into the Exodus, that we start to look at the words and think about them a lot more in depth, because in this one area here, we never read where the Creator sought to kill somebody that don't succeed.
Right.
We don't know who he sought to kill. We can say most people agree with it might have been Moshe. Right. That's most commentaries. Why he going to kill him? And then say, and how she knew that the circumcision would be the remedy to smooth over all this mess. Because we don't find out that a revelation came to her directly. I know about one particular midrash, but I'm just saying, just looking at the book on face value, to consider, can we gloss over it and just read it? But we got to be like a detective, so to speak, and say, who's the him? Which is the son? Who feet the skin of the circumcision was cast at? And who was going to be killed? And with the brown, and in Akkadian language, that same word katan means protector. We know getting circumcised protects you against a lot of stuff too as well. And we know that circumcision, it's a covenant, and you're supposed to circumcise a child on the 8th day. You could never be too late if you got life, but you could be too early. And the thing is, if you're late in circumcising somebody, is that it's not the best thing, but it's no sin behind it if you're late. So I'm just bringing that out as well. There's no sin behind it if you're late in circumcising someone. There's no offering that they talk about you bring up because you didn't circumcise a child on time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if it's not for health reasons, you might not. Because we read where 40 years later, the children of Israel had to be circumcised when they went to Gilgal and they crossed over to Jordan, because all those born in the wilderness was not circumcised. So therefore, you're offering up every day. But there's no penalty or sin behind that. So I wanted to leave those particular questions there in vogue, because it's too much to go into this particular Sidra. And I advise everybody that's on the sound of my voice, this particular portion ends at the 6th chapter of Exodus, the 1st verse. There's one question I want to address if you know, at the time. I normally don't address questions outside of the topic I'm dealing with, but one brother I met told me the sister asked a question about a new covenant, and I directed her that Chief Uziel, Chief Rabbi Chief and Yabin, and any brother up there, Samazakar, any brother that's up there at D.C.B. would give you the exact same answers I'm about to give you. But since you know, the brother brought it to my attention again, and I said, I already committed to say, well, I'm just going to read that. So we go to just for a minute, Jeremiah 31:31.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 31.
Yeah, about the new covenant. The questions are concerning what is the new covenant.
Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31 reads.
All right, 1 second. Let me just try to get there with you just a minute. Okay. And this after they said that, people wonder about, why we being punished for something our forefathers did and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
All right. But
Here we go.
You
Jeremiah
got it.
chapter 31, verse 31. Now, according to the covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, for as much as they broke my covenant, although I was a Lord over them, saith Yehudah. But this covenant.
You got 31st verse?
At Jeremiah 31:31, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me just
verse
read this
30, maybe I should start from 30. Behold, the days come, saith Yehudah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel.
You got a different book. Oh, you got a different book that's from your screen.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I follow. All right, all right. For those who are aligned, you got a King James version of order the chapters and verses, and then I'm using like a Masoretic text.
But I'm using the Masoretic text also.
Oh, yeah, well,
but maybe it was maybe
right,
they made a mistake.
Yeah, because mine starts at the 31st verse. Behold, the days come.
Yeah, so behold, mine is verse 30. So it says, behold, the days come, saith Yehudah, that I. Right. So most Masoretic texts are probably going to start from verse 31, right. But mine starts from verse 30. Okay. Behold, the days come, saith Yehudah, that I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Verse 31, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, for as much as they broke my covenant, although I was a Lord over them, saith Yehudah.
Hold right there. All right, so just to say that not like the way, because when we came out of the land of Egypt, what we had those tablets that was brought down from Moshe. All right. And they was put in the Ark of the Covenant. And and that's why they call it the Ark of the Covenant, something that holds the covenant, which is a contract. So that was a contract with the finger of the Creator, the fingers of God. So the first time Moshe had got the stone and the writings from the Creator. The second time, when he came down, his face glowed. The second time he brought the tablets down, that's the only time his face glowed, and he had to cut out a part of the rocks and stone and bring it up, and the Creator wrote on it. So we contribute one part from man's position, and the Creator actually did the writing and inscribed upon it, and we accepted it instead. So that's why I said that particular covenant, and that's written out. It's gonna be a different style. All right, but just read a little bit more.
Verse 32. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yehudah. I'll put my law in their inward parts, and in their heart will I write it. And I'll be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yehudah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yehudah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and their sin will I remember no more.
All right, right there. I'm going to stop it. That's it. Now, what it is, it didn't say that it's going to change the rules to the game. It didn't say some new type of laws. That what I'm doing now, highlighting and sharing different insights to brothers and sisters out there, that I won't have to explain to you what the Creator that I'm talking about. I don't have to explain to you what his laws is. You would know it just as well as I do. Now, why I use the heart, in one part you would say he's gonna give us a new heart. And a new heart, and say, why not a new mind, a new brain? Why this organ right here? Because first of all, the heart is the first organ that's formed in the embryo. First organ, period. The brain is second. The Creator always takes first preference, the first fruit. Not only that, the heart is the most unselfish organ of the body. It supplies every other organ, and no organ ever supplies the heart. So the Creator going to describe it in our heart, something that's unselfish, something that we don't have to think about, that I would know what the Creator expects of me, and you would know what the Creator expects of you. And I don't have to convince you about which God to serve. You don't have to convince me about which God to serve. We all would know which God we're supposed to serve, and it'll be the exact same God. So I want to teach you about the Creator. All we do together is praise the Creator and serve him. That's it. So that's basically, when people talk about a new covenant doing away with laws, we don't find that written there. We find out what's the essence of new covenant. In other words, I don't have to pick up this book anymore. I would know word by word, page by page, line upon line, right here, running right off just like that. Like people run off these rap songs or old doo-wop songs. You'll be running it just like that. That's what it's talking about, that you'll know it just that well, just like people know the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. All right. With that, I hope everybody got something out of what I said, and any mistakes been my own, and I appreciate it, that I had this time and opportunity. And like I said, share if you can. And I thank the brothers again from D.C.B. and Chief Uzziel taking time out of his schedule. And you have an early Shabbat Shalom and part of a Rosh Chodesh, but the Shabbat will be the first Shabbat of this particular month.
Hallelujah.
Right, that's it. Shalom.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to all your different platforms. I'm thanking y'all once again for joining us. Shalom, shalom. May the Most High God of heaven and earth be with you all. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Talk about it. Shalom.